Oral Tradition Archives presents Men and the Life of Desire, a day for men with Robert Bly, James Hillman, and Michael Meade. Recorded live in San Francisco on March 11th, 1990. Bly, Hillman, and Meade begin by giving some reasons why they come to these conferences and some introductory thoughts on men and desire. They follow with poetry from W.B. Yeats, Rumi, D.H. Lawrence, William Blake, and Etheridge Knight. First, Robert Bly speaks, followed by James Hillman and Michael Meade.
We're here because we're here. And the joy of the day is the joy of being here. And in order to keep you here, we have to keep saying a few words.
All day long.
But the joy is actually the joy of being together with many men, which wasn't a joy I had ever before I began to do this. And then hopefully during the day we'll sing or something like that, and we'll be able to hear 700 men's voices, which is a thing that I never forget, no matter where I am. If I'm in trouble, I remember something like that. I've been thinking lately, the women have been isolated and the women have been made passive for several thousand years. The church had something to do with that. Every individual country had something to do with that. The men had something to do with that. They had something to do with that. So there's a passivity they've been in, a forced passivity, and they're coming out of it into activity. Now the strangest thing is that at the very moment they have been doing that, the men have been going into passivity. Partly because the warrior's been wiped out in the world, partly because the corporations don't want active men, they want passive men. And then the women 20 years ago or so decided they like passive men well. And we listen to what is around us. We listen to our mothers, didn't we? And we listen to voices when we hear them. And there has been a thing called the development of the sensitive male or the soft male in the United States, and it has gone a long ways and has produced a tremendous passivity in addition to the other causes of that. I don't think it was a mistake, because the American men did this, for example, the French men did not, and the German men did not. And they're not moving very much. So therefore, we went like this, but then we come back out. Does that make sense to you? There's something, so it's been very strange between men and women because they've been coming towards activity and we've been going towards passivity. Ooh, a little trouble. A little trouble. So the next thing I want to say is that we've been thinking about 6 or 7 ways of activity or methods of activity. When men were active by cultural story, when there was no passive TV, when you entertained yourselves and laughed and did all those things and had your own business or your own farm, whatever that was, the men didn't think about their method of activity. They were just active. Now I think it's proper to begin thinking of ways of activity, and I'll name 6 or 7 of those. First is the way of activity called the king. And the king can be called that part in you that decides what you're going to do with the rest of your life. And when passivity comes, that one disintegrates. Michael will tell a story in which you'll be able to see how tremendous it is just to get connected with your king. Your king is still alive, but just to get connected is a wonderful thing. Second, we could talk about as a warrior. Some of us are connected, some not. That's a different way of activity. Obviously, James has a lot of warrior, or he wouldn't be taking on the psychological establishment in the way he is. There's also a lover. James has a lot of the lover. Both these two have a lot of the lover. And I think it was more said the lover is connected with appreciative consciousness. And we won't have time to go into these today, so these are the, because we have to choose certain things to go into. But in Shakespeare's time, as you know, young men took 2 to 3 years in which they were specifically lovers, and that's what they did. They learned to play a musical instrument, they learned to sing to introverted women through barriers and stuff like that, and go home and jack off. That's the way it was. I mean, what could you do? But nevertheless, that was a training in appreciating women, appreciating beauty. That's a wonderful thing. Another very strong one, I think, is the trickster. And this continent is the strongest, they think, in the whole world in trickster energy. The trickster energy is in the ground of this continent. Paul Radin did the wonderful book called The Trickster, and a lot of that material is right in the American Indian myth, all of it. The Tibetans have a lot of trickster, and many others have, but in this culture it was very strong in the native culture. And the trickster is essential. At the end of his fairy story, you don't get through it unless you learn how to rob the robbers. So if you're going to be a nice boy all your life, check it in now. So, and it's very hard for us, brought up in this Christian thing, which is all right, that we're supposed to be nice and, you know, all that. So, it doesn't work, as you may have noticed. Another one that we could mention is the magician, or the magus, or however you want to describe that one, the one who works in the invisible world. That's where the shamans were active. You go out and meet the spirits and do that. And there's tremendous material going on in that. I mean, there's a lot of real, genuine sort of yogurt magicians and yogurt shamans going on now.
Yogurt?
Yogurt shamans, yes. A Marin County version, but anyway. But nevertheless, there's a lot of intensity in that area. Therapists, in a way, are in the magician area because you deal with invisible things, and if something goes well in an hour, you don't know who did it or what happened. It was done invisibly by someone else. And that's a tremendous thing to honor that. Well, then we must mention the wild man. The wild man, some kind of energy that's been with us since the time we were hunters. 200,000, 500,000, 1 million years we were hunters. We had connections with animals, and to a certain extent, our connection with animals was the veil was thinner than that between people. And we have felt the sadness of all the animals that have died. And we also have a link with animals in the whole animal world that in some way that women do not have, and we have to honor that. And it doesn't mean that you have to go out and kill animals, but you need to feel that wildness. That part of you is made of hair. It's got hair on your body, and you have that stuff. And a lot of our spontaneity comes through that wild man. The last one I'll mention is one I've been thinking of, which is the grief man. I think that's a form of activity. And it's particularly true, it's particularly an activity of men. One of the greatest courages that men have is the ability to go down into their grief and into their darkness and into their suffering. And James wrote a wonderful book on that called The Dream in the Underworld. That the underworld that the Greeks talked of is very much like the dream world, and we descend to get there. Then all of you in your lives, by the time you get 35, you have to make a decision if you're going to go with the grief man down or not. And sometimes 45 is a better time, sometimes 50 is a better time. But just to know that there is a path there, and there'll be someone with you when you go down. So these will come back and forth in the course of the day.
Well, the why we're here, I have to admit to begin with, I'm here because I love to be with Michael and Robert. And that's number one. And that's how I got started in this. But then it expanded into being with more and more men, and what that was, the effect that was having. I write about everything. I mean, anybody who sends me a letter and says, would you do so? Yeah, sure, I write about anything. It doesn't matter. But I can't write about this, and have not tried and don't want to. Something goes on here that can't be reported. Keeping alive something to do with other men besides the usual ways that we live with other men, by watching TV or drinking beer or doing that at the same time, or talking about cars and talking about sports. And I mean, there's no movement of the soul in that. It doesn't move anywhere. And this passive, soft male thing that Robert's talking about has infected the whole country. So we're still used in the language of therapy. We all imagine ourselves as traumatized and victims and survivors, and blame, psychology of blame, it's always somebody else. Not realizing that government out there is our government, is us, and that the activation that Robert talks about, whichever realm it's in, eventually leads into the world of community, and into the world, whether it's the invisible magician or the trickster, wherever, we all live in a community. We don't live alone working on ourselves or pumping iron or taking our vitamin pills. We also live with each other. And there seems to be in this feeling among us of some kind of sense of male activation in a society that for the last 10 years or since the 60s hasn't been there. We've all copped out. We've all been going to therapy. You know, straightening ourselves out. Meanwhile, the fucking country's gone to, I mean, well. So, I suppose I have some kind of hidden feelings about, not so hidden, about getting us off our ass and out of the therapist's chair and out of the patient's chair and out of the victim chair and the survival chair and the abused chair and all of that place and doing something. And this is one of my forms of doing something. I don't march very well. And I'm ashamed of that. But there are many ways of doing it. You mentioned 7, and there are many ways of doing it. But it has to be done. Michael.
I want to echo all of the thoughts and the sentiments. I come to be with Robert and to be with James this way, shoulder to shoulder, to take risks, to see what kind of trouble we can get into, and see if perhaps we get out of it.
We rely on you for that one.
I also come to stay out of other kinds of trouble. I mean, this literally keeps us off the streets. And I mean that seriously, that the feeling of whatever 750 men, whatever it is, that are here now, coming through one doorway with exuberance, dancing, singing, playing drums, howling, and no one getting harmed or hurt is something I come for.
Right.
And when we're doing that, I feel inside me, my father, and the fact that he stopped dancing pretty much when he got married. And I've heard that story from hundreds of men, how when we go through the so-called stages of life, we tend to drop the former stage. And so I come so that I don't die not having danced. And the same thing with the singing. For a long time, I was envious of cultures where men sang frequently. Gypsy men get up and sing in the morning, or else the sun won't rise. That's how they see it. That's a new order of self-esteem. And if it's grandiose, let's have some. The Africans say, bad men have no song. That to me is a scary idea. So I come to sing, so as not to turn out a bad man. Robert mentioned fierceness in that business. I come here to be intense with a group of men to seek out various kinds of fierceness and sorrows, so that I don't unconsciously, unexpectedly, and improperly unleash him in my own house. And I come for this word desire and the new word, or the modern word for ritual, which is art. To me, they're very similar. And I'm always going somewhere looking for some piece of sincere ritual. And so I come here hoping that our way of going through the door, our way of talking with each other, and our way of trying things has some ritual quality. And then the other thing I come for, I think, is to have an image light up somewhere inside and outside that I can then take home and be with and work with. So I come for the occasional images that erupt when Robert's telling a poem, when James is explicating some aspect of the psyche, when some man is telling his own story, or when we're working with a part of a story. For when one of those images lights up, I come to just get a glimpse of that and to carry that around afterwards. I think that's enough. Yeah, you start.
Okay. So we thought we would begin, since he mentioned art, and what is it? It's feeling and soul, and it's got some kind of structure to it. So I hadn't thought of what to do here, but I thought I'd begin with this Yeats poem. Would you do it with me on the drum? I mentioned the king. So here's Yeats. He's about 55 years old, and the king has come into him. He worked hard to get it, started the Abbey Theater, did a whole lot of things, and finally it came in. My 50th year had come and gone. I sat a solitary man in a crowded London shop, an open book, an empty cup on the marble tabletop. While on the shop and street I gazed, my body for a moment blazed. In 20 minutes, more or less, it seemed so great my happiness that I was blessed and could bless. All right, he's asked me to do a couple little poems from the Unseen Rain book of Rumi, the greatest wild poet that ever lived, 1207 to 1273, wrote in Persian. Translations, I've done a few, and Coleman Box has done marvelous ones. Unseen Rain, quatrains. Let's do two. Can we? Light isn't everything. Stuff down there is all right too. Here's his poem. Happy, not from anything that happens. Warm, not from a fire or a hot bath. Light, I register 0 on a scale. I have lived on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking on a door. It opens. I've been knocking from inside. All right, go ahead.
I've got a roomy one, too. On Resurrection Day, your body testifies against you. Your hand says, I stole money. Your lips, I said meanness. Your feet, I went where I shouldn't. Your genitals, me too. They will make your praying sound hypocritical. Let the body's doings speak openly now. Let the body's doings speak openly now without your saying a word. As a student walking behind a teacher says, "This one knows more clearly than I the way."
So it's the body that knows more clearly? The body is the
knows more
teacher.
clearly. And the words you say are hypocritical. And the teacher's trying to tell the body what to do. Let's try this one from D.H. Lawrence. It's called "To Women, as Far as I'm Concerned."
Nice and slow, one at a time.
The feelings I don't have, I don't have. The feelings I don't have, I won't say I have. The feelings you say you have, you don't have. The feelings you would like us both to have, we neither of us have. The feelings people ought to have, they never have. If people say they've got feelings, you may be pretty sure they haven't got them. So, if you want either of us to feel anything at all, you'd better abandon all idea of feelings altogether.
Wow.
That's a great little
Yeah,
poem.
it is.
Perfect, yeah. I want to move a little with the word of desire towards the word of desire, but start with the business of how desperate it is when it's missing. This is Rumi. Has anyone seen the boy that used to come here? Round-faced troublemaker, quick to find the joke, slow to be serious. Red shirt, perfect coordination, strong-muscled, with things always in his pocket, a reed flute, an ivory pick, polished and ready for his immense talent. You know that one? Have you heard any stories about him? Pharaoh and the whole Egyptian world collapsed for such a Joseph. I'd gladly spend years getting word of him, even third or fourth hand.
Read it again.
That's beautiful. Great, great.
So one of the other great teachers of desire was William Blake. And he put these proverbs together. Actually, he got most of them in a vision. He imagined, or he saw, that he was in hell, passing through the rooms of hell. And over each doorway there was a sign. He called them Proverbs from Hell. Well, if they were around nowadays, James says they'd be bumper stickers from hell. He's talking about the intensity of life, the necessity of desire, the necessity of conflict, and such things. He says, those who restrain desire do so because theirs is weak enough to be restrained. And being restrained, it does by degrees become passive, until at last it is nothing but the shadow of a desire. And then this is my favorite bumper sticker. You know, you're driving down the freeway and all the cars in front of you say "baby on board" and all that stuff. If Blake's car was in front of you, it would say this: sooner murder an infant in its cradle than nurse unacted desire.
Give it once more.
It's a little tricky. He's not advising murder or abuse. This requires a metaphorical imagination. But he is saying that nursing an unacted desire is the same thing as killing an infant. He says, sooner murder an infant in its cradle than nurse unacted desire.
I'll tell you a thought I had in that in the Vietnam War, that there was a lot of unacted desire in the 50s, that whole golf playing Eisenhower time. And because they nursed so many unacted desires, a lot of infants got killed in the cradles by napalm in Vietnam.
Another Blake. He who desires but acts not breeds pestilence. He says, no bird flies too high if he flies with his own wings.
How about the tigers of wrath are wiser than the horses of instruction? The tigers of wrath are wiser than the horses of instruction.
You feel a little activity there?
Your outrage is wiser than what you're telling it.
And James said a wonderful thing 6 months ago. He said, what we have is inrage, not outrage.
How about this one, Michael? You never know what is enough until you know what is more than enough. You never know what is enough until you know what is more than enough. Yeah.
The road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom.
Yeah.
The road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom.
Pretty dangerous is right, yeah. We're assuming that you know that if you came to an event on Men and the Life of Desire, you are willing to get involved in danger.
You're already in excess, anyway, that's clear.
Right.
The thing is that we don't know what desire is. So we think desire is just going shopping or something, you know.
That reminds me of an African proverb. If you came here to get out of trouble, you're like the man who, trying to get out of the rain, jumped into the sea. He said, emotions are divine influxes. You know, the business, because of being American and our fascination with manifest destiny, we keep trying to possess emotions. So we talk about my anger and my sorrow and my feelings. And the old way was turned around. Emotions are divine influxes. Someone said, Blake said, I believe it was, if you are in a passion, you some good may do, but no good at all if the passion is in you.
See, one of the implications is that if you have a purpose and a passion, then you're in a different place in relation to a woman or to a man that you love. If you are not have a passion or a purpose and the woman attacks you, you will come out with something reactive, and nothing much is going to happen then. You're going to get entangled.
See, this thing about Blake's remarks about desire has to do with the soul's desire, not necessarily, as I say, you know, what you think is your desire. And finding out what the soul's desire is not an easy thing. But when the soul's desire begins, or your desire for the soul, or the soul's desire begins to show itself, then there's tremendous emotional life. And it isn't just, I want this or that. It's something more than that. And that's really what we're trying to get at today, is what is this desire? Let me read.
And if you work yourself, then the soul is the one who will start from the other direction and start to make a road towards you.
Move towards you. So I'm going to read a piece from Etheridge Knight called Feeling Fucked Up. And you can hear, you can hear the lament of a man without desire beginning to be moved by his desire. Lord, she's done left me, done packed up and split, and I with no way to make her come back, and everywhere the world is bare, bright bone white, crystal sand glistens, dope death, dead, dying, and jiving, drove her away, made her take her laughter and her smiles and her softness and her midnight sighs. Fuck Coltrane and music and clouds drifting in the sky. Fuck the sea and trees and the sky and birds and alligators and all the animals that roam the earth. Fuck Marx and Mayo. Fuck Fidel and Nkrumah and democracy and communism. Fuck smack and pot and red ripe tomatoes. Fuck Joseph. Fuck Mary. Fuck God, Jesus, and all the disciples. Fuck Fannin and Nixon and Malcolm. Fuck the revolution. Fuck freedom. Fuck the whole motherfucking thing. All I want now is my woman back so my soul can sing.
Michael Meade begins the Russian fairy tale The Firebird, The Princess Vasilisa, and The Horse of Power. After a brief discussion of the story, James Hillman speaks on the difference between need, want, and desire, and how desire is connected to appetite, ambition, and imagination.
Ready to start a story? If you're not used to listening to stories, don't try to catch the whole story. Don't worry about it. Let the story catch you in some little detail. What you forget, some other man wrote down. Just let a detail come and get you. An image. Whatever that detail is, that'll open the door to the story. The word story means storehouse. It's the place in which things are stored. So once upon a time, once below a time, once next to time, once before time was made digital, made to glow in the dark, captured in sequential numbers, tied to the wrists of all the people. Once, in that time, in a land beyond this land, beyond the land, beyond this land, in a land beyond that, there was a king. And in that realm, there was also a young hunter. And the young hunter rode a horse. And that horse was a horse of power. There are no horses like that these days. For that horse had a broad chest. It had eyes like fire. It had iron hoofs that stamped the ground when it ran. You can't see a horse like that in these times. For all of those horses are lay below the ground in the graves next to the men that once rode them. And they will lay there forever, or at least until the time when they are called forth to rise from the ground again. And when they rise, their riders will rise with them. And when they rise, there will be a great clamoring of weapons, a knocking of great clubs, a stamping of iron hoofs, a conflict heard all about the place. And at that time, all of the enemies of God will be driven from the earth. At least that's what my grandfather said. And his grandfather said it before him. And if they don't know, who the hell does? Well, once in that time, The hunter was out riding on his horse of power, and he was riding through a dense forest. It was that time of the year when the bushes and the trees put forth every possible color of green and raise it up to the sun shining down on it. And as the sun shone, the rabbits rustled through the bush, passing by the little blue flowers that were sprouting from the ground. The squirrel rustled along the limbs of the great trees. And except for that, it was completely silent. No other sound, and not a bird could be heard singing anywhere in the entire forest. And the hunter, as he was going along, listening just to the stamping of the iron hoofs of his horse, was thinking to himself, I wonder why there are no birds singing in the forest at all. And no sooner did he think that than he saw before him on the path, laying on the ground, a great curving golden feather, laying there as if flaming in the sun. He stopped, his eye fixed on that feather. It was larger than the largest feathers in the wings of a swan. It was larger than the greatest carrying feathers of a golden eagle. And it lay there as if burning, for it was made of gold, and when the sun hit it, the light came back in the form of flames. And as he looked on it, the horse of power spoke and said, don't pick up that feather. If you should pick it up, you will learn the meaning of fear. You will come to know trouble. The hunter considered it. On the one hand, the words of a horse of power must be listened to, and they were clear enough. On the other hand, he knew that the reason for the silence of the birds was that the great firebird had flown through that forest, and that this feather had fallen from the burning breast of the great firebird. And he knew that no one had a feather from the burning breast of the great firebird. And if someone were to take a feather from that breast and bring it to the king would look upon him with favor. He would be admired by the king, and he would be honored. And who in his right mind does not wish to be honored, admired, and in the favorable eyesight of a king? On the other hand,
That's four hands now.
he did not seriously desire a greater knowledge of fear.
Breakdown as to the question.
And trouble he thought he had seen enough of. Looked at from another angle, he might receive some benefit from the king. He could not take his eye off the feather anyway. It was a dilemma. Think about it. What would you do? Have you ever seen such a feather? If you've seen it, did you pick it up? If you've seen it, did you turn and go some other way? If you know of such a feather, if you've had it in your life, fix it in your memory. after turning it this way and turning it that way, the hunter suddenly jumped down, picked up the feather, leapt back onto his horse, turned the horse in the direction of the palace of the king, and lost no time getting to the palace as quickly as possible, carrying the feather as he went. He dismounted in the courtyard, mounted the steps to the palace, entered the great hall of the king, went directly before the king, and gave him the golden feather from the burning breast of the great firebird. The king graciously accepted it, thanked him for it, and then said, "You know, one feather is not really a fitting gift for a king." Now, the whole bird, captured and held here before me, that is a gift that befits a proper king. And so now, I require you, I command you, I direct you to go and get the entire firebird and bring it here before me. And by the way, one more thing. If you should fail to do so, the distance between your head and your shoulders will be increased by the thickness of my sword passing between the two. And so, the young hunter turned. He walked back through the great hall, but this time, his head hanging down, his eyes fixed on the ground, weeping. He descended the stairs into the courtyard, went and stood beside the horse of power, tears coming from his eyes. And the horse spoke and said, "O hunter, why do you weep like this?" And the hunter said, "Because I gave the feather to the king, and he commanded that either I bring him the entire firebird or I lose my head. And since it is impossible to even know where the firebird is, much less capture it, I weep, for my head is going to depart my body." Now the horse of power didn't exactly console him, didn't try any of the modern forms of therapy at all.
No support.
Didn't recommend a hot tub. Didn't form a support group. The horse of power said, "I told you so." And then he said, "Now, grieve no more. The trouble is not now. The trouble is before you."
Good work. Can we take a couple of questions? Let's take a couple of questions.
So that's the first little section. And you can see what happens when you pick up the feather. A thing so light that can float in the air. Yet once picked up, suddenly one's whole life is at stake. And the impossible has been demanded. Something beyond the imagination at the time of picking up the feather. Everything has changed. It has become a matter of life and death. The stories reveal their structure in the first couple of sentences. when it says there was a king and there was a hunter, it states right away that this is about hunting, which is what men are truly about anyway. And then the third thing it says, and the hunter had a horse of power, and that's a way of saying that this is not the story of a helpless boy or a helpless child, that some power has already been developed and he rides that power. So some qualities, nowadays we would say psychologically, I think, some qualities developed inside that carry him along.
It could not only be developed inside, but it could be material from all of the, the realms through which you came when you came down to this planet to be born. It could be the ancestors, hundreds of thousands of them, which are somehow inside of you. And they have knowledge. And we're so cut off from them, we don't even ask them a question.
That's good.
At least he asks the horse the horse of power is there and knows, offers some advice, he thinks about it. He's well advanced, don't you think so, compared to us?
The other thing is the horse is whatever it is that knows the nature of fear, trouble, and when danger is present.
The horse is also part of his physical being, too.
Say
The horse is also part of his physical being because that's where you first know when there's fear and trouble. You sense it. You know your balls shrink up. You know there's something going on here. even if the nice boy doesn't see anything.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good. This little thing in there when it says no bird is singing in the forest, anybody who hunts knows right away. If the birds are quiet, something is coming or passing by right away. So that's the alertness to the psychic situation, let's say. And then the horse has the information about that. The horse knows that feather. So there's some connection between the horse, which James is saying is first noticed in the body, and the great firebird.
They're asking what the firebird is.
We'll see
it's a loaded
more.
question.
We'll see more of the firebird, but the story has already said that whatever it is, it causes everything in the forest to go into quiet, and quite specifically, it has a burning breast.
Now this story that we're in is really a story of all of us in the sense that we're all still working out what is the desire. And desire has been reduced in the culture, reduced to needs. And this man in this story is not a needy boy, he is a hunter, as Michael said. And to discover the desire, to discover what the soul desires, to discover what is really desired and what fire is in the breast is not an easy thing. And I don't think psychotherapy has helped that much. I think psychotherapy is very interested in needs and not so interested in desires. You know, the image of the parrot lying on its back on a couch in the therapist's office with its claws up, and the therapist is saying to the parrot, "Are you sure you don't need a cracker?" So our desires get reduced to needs, as if there's some internal thing that didn't get taken care of 40 years ago when you were in another city living with your mother or your father or whoever was supposed to take care of you. And the desire that burns is not necessarily a need. Needs may come first, and you may feel yourself as a needy little boy, and that's a very important part of our lives. We need a lover, we need a blessing, we need protection, we need refuge, we need support groups, we need a leader, we need we're full of a need for a good friend and so on. But there's something beyond the neediness part of it. And you know yourself the difference between a need and a want. If you're lying with your woman and you need her, you're putting her into a mother role and she's turned off. Whereas if you want her, she's desirable. It's a very simple little thing, but it's that's a couple $1,000 worth of therapy right there. So the move towards desire is in some way making a very simple move, another very simple move, which is I have a needy boy, and I have a very sad boy, and I have a lonely boy, and a neglected boy, but I am not that boy. I have one, but I'm not that. Now that little step, again, is a couple years of therapy. Usually you come in as, I am a needy boy, I am a victim, I was abused, and so on and so forth. And the step from being it, the identification with it as they call it, to having it is, again, a big one. But the crucial step, that's the crucial step, that's what one waits for.
What do you do with the feeling you have that I am a shame boy, I was abused? What do you do with that feeling?
The feeling that you have of that is still there, but it becomes more imaged. And it can cry, and it can cry out and ask and so on, but there's a moment where you listen to it and take care of it. When you don't listen to it and take care of it, it absorbs you. You become it. So it's very often neglected that makes you identify with it.
Suppose that every time you got in an argument, let's say, with a woman, you became the little wounded boy or the little shame boy, and you're speaking out of it, I am this.
Yeah.
How would you prevent that from taking place at that crucial moment?
I think at the crucial moment you've got to pull back from the argument because you're being clobbered. And the little boy can't deal in the argument. Mm-hmm. He has no resources at all. All he wants is to be forgiven, caressed, something else. He's not there for the argument.
How do you explain this? Excuse me, I must go out and feed my little boy a moment and I'll be back.
No. The crucial thing is not to ask her to take care of it for you. That's the problem. That sets it up. You want her to do it. But don't you see me? And your whole voice changes and you get into this ee sounds about me and need and please and feel and you've been taught that this is relating. So it's much more a matter of pulling back from that and being helpless, but not asking her to do it, or the partner, whoever the partner is. And the partner may even be, going home for Thanksgiving, and there he is. You get off the plane, and you're coming right in. You hit that doorbell, and there you are, 5 years old.
You got the E in the house.
You sink right down the family drain. So the move out of that neediness is a move back into, yes, there are these needs. There are these needs. And then trying to hear those needs for yourself. What is it you need? And that's not a whining, complaining thing. That's going into the need. When you go into the need a while, it may become something more. Really wants what it really wants, and then you're on the path towards desire. What it really wants, and wanting is reaching for. It's not asking for. It's reaching for. A big difference again. That needing is asking for it, and wanting is going for it, and that is again moving towards desire. Now we have to talk a little bit about the feather and the puer and so on, and something of that sort. The word puer describes an archetype. The word means a young, eternally young man, living in eternal youth. Beautiful, fiery, ambitious, desirous, flying through the sky like some of those Greek figures did, Icarus, who had his wings and flew towards the sun. Ascension, a feeling of being called or being perfect. Now that feeling it doesn't get very far in our culture. It appears sometimes in your desires for fame. In adolescence you have desires for fame, wanting to be a star. And that's where some of that puer ambition is captured, whether it's a sports star or a rock star or a music star. That's one place you feel the first moves of the puer, the archetype of youthful, beautiful, eternal, desirous energy. Another place you may feel it is falling in love. When you're lifted by it, you begin to grow your wings. Another place you may feel it is with some kind of heroic accomplishment. Or you may see it on a movie and identify with it. But it happens very often in adolescence. And when we see those movies where did it all go? And the guys are all sitting around and hanging out and drinking beer at 35 and 40, and they say, where did it all go? What they're talking about, where it all went, they're talking about that puer feeling. Now this hunter has some of that puer feeling. That's why he picks up the feather. Because there's something more. There's something more.
Does everyone have that feeling, but some families kill it early on? Or are some people...
I'd like to believe that it's archetypal and therefore potential for every man. Yes. Whether the family killed it, whether the school killed it, whether the conventions of the religion killed it, who knows what may have... Poverty can also kill it. Oppression can kill it. War can kill it. I mean, many things can kill it. Or at least suppress it. But as an archetypal potential, it's there. And I think when you bring poetry into the men's groups, you're awakening it again. You're awakening the power of language, the power of fantasy, of myth, of story, of imagination. That affects the puer. You begin to feel there's more than merely what's mundane. Now, I said it has to do with appetite. You want something badly, hotly. And the word appetite goes back to a Latin word, and it goes back to a Greek word, and it means the part of the PET in it refers to wings. The ptero word in Greek was wings.
I didn't know that.
And appetite is connected to your wings, the wing stretch. And supposedly the fingertips are homologous with birds' wings, that through the way the body is built, if we go back through paleontology and so on and so forth, things I don't know anything about, but what you do with your fingertips is where your spirit comes out, whether it's writing or crafting or hammering or whatever. Those are the ends of your wings. So where you put your hands is very important. And we live in a world which is called low maintenance, which means don't touch anything, because maintenance that comes from the word hands, main. And so you have low maintenance shirts and low maintenance clothes and low maintenance gardens and low maintenance food and all the rest, meaning you don't have to touch it. So your spirit is never expressed in your hands and what you're doing. And that has to do with what you said, that you have to have a craft. Remember? Yeah. That art always has matter in it. It's where your fingers with your hands are touching matter somewhere. And a pencil is also matter.